Nerdy is defined as someone characterized by an obsessive interest in something. Xbox, Marvel, technology, D&D, Lord of the Rings, escape rooms, Pokemon, Funko Pop, Star Wars, PlayStation, comic books, Magic the Gathering, Nintendo, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. All of that is Tech D Rob, host of the Nerd News Podcast, your source for everything nerdy.
I realize you guys are all nerds.
And this is the Nerd News Podcast.
Welcome to hopefully the first of many Nerd News podcasts that are available on video. And if you're listening to this and you don't see a video available yet, just know I'm working on it. And sorry for the stomach grumbling. I'm at the station well past my lunchtime, which is afternoon. You know, I don't eat breakfast, so I typically have already had lunch by now. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And I am recording on a Monday today because the show will now be available again on Tuesdays rather than Wednesdays to, you know, adjust some scheduling things for other things available from the Ace and TJ show. On that note, let's get into the quick hits for the Nerd News Podcast. So on Xbox Series X and Xbox One, we have Colossal Cave coming out March 28th, which would be today. Crime Boss Rockhay City on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, S, and PC. MLB The Show makes its way to the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. And I believe that would be on the Game Pass. It was last year, at least. And then Sifu makes its way to Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One. And Terra Nil on PC, iOS, and Android. The Last of Us Part 1 makes its way to PC today, which if you've never checked that out, definitely do. Dredge is out on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, S, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, PC. That is on Thursday. Thursday. And then The Last Worker on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation VR 2, Switch, PC, Thursday as well. And then Friday, we have Citizen Sleeper on current and next-gen PlayStation, along with Continuous High on the Quest. Cosmonious High. I completely misread that word. And then on DVD this week, we have Plane, which is the Gerard Butler. I almost called it a vehicle, but I hate when people do that. And Missing, which is the sequel to Searching, I believe. Those are on DVD this week. Digitally, Avatar: Way of the Water. You know, in theaters, we have the D&D movie, Dungeons and Dragons, along with Assassin, which is a Bruce Willis movie, which who knew that was coming out. So let's take a quick break. And when I come back, I have a couple movie reviews for you. We'll talk about the situation with Jonathan Majors, which I'm sure you heard. I want to talk about a game that I'm going to buy very soon, and I recommend you probably should do the same. And we'll talk about the end of an era. That's all next on the Nerd News Podcast.
At TechD_Rob on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. More Nerd News Podcast next. Follow TechD_Rob on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. At TechD_Rob. This is the Nerd News Podcast.
So I just realized that I shifted my position, and if I'm doing this for video, I may have needed to not do that. For some reason, my phone was listening to me. Let me turn that off. So if it looks funny, sorry. I'll try to do better next time. But the next episode of the Nerd News Podcast might not be recorded from here. I am planning to record stuff from my house, mostly. So I got to figure out a camera angle and stuff for that too. But let's get into some nerd news. So first on the horizon is Jonathan Majors. He has been arrested and accused of, I don't know if it's considered domestic violence, but it was violence against a female. And if he did it, then yeah, throw him under the bus. And, Marvel and Kevin Feige can figure it out. But either way, Marvel and Kevin Feige are trying to figure it out right now. Regardless of what happens, this is a huge accusation against a man who is what's the word I'm looking for? He's a key piece. He's the key piece of the upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 5. The villain in Quantumania, the villain in non-Marvel wise, Creed 3, or whichever Creed this movie was most recent one was. But it's a pretty crazy thing either way. The repercussions of this, false or true, are going to be huge for this man. So you hope that he didn't do it, but you also hope that someone wouldn't lie about it. So, we'll just have to keep our eyes peeled and see, keep our eyes peeled. What am I talking about? We'll have to just see how it plays out. Hopefully he didn't hurt someone like this. Cause he seems like a nice guy, but you never know what's going on behind closed doors. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Next on the list of things is Resident Evil 4. The remake is out as of last Friday. I know I didn't do a Nerd News podcast last week, but I would have talked about this extensively at that time. Resident Evil 4, the best Resident Evil game ever made. I'm a big fan of all of them, even 5 and 6. Even 5 and 6, those terrible, terrible games. 5 was a fun co-op game. 6 was also a fun co-op game that gave you 3 different story angles. I loved it. It was great. But the Resident Evil 4 remake came out on Friday, and I'm planning to pick it up. Pick it up. I'm going to buy it digitally. But I'm not sure if I'm going with Xbox or PlayStation yet. The PlayStation controller leaves something to be desired, but I have bought the last 2 Resident Evils on those consoles. I bought Resident Evil 7 and 8, but you know what? I also bought Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake on the Xbox. So I mix up my consoles. So I don't know which one. Hopefully I'll have it this week, and I'll get some time in on it. And I'll let you know what I recommend. But if you only have one or the other, then obviously you should go with that. But you should get this game. From what I understand, the already greatest Resident Evil game made has been made better. So what's not to love? Also, it's the end of an era for Nintendo. The Wii U and 3DS eShop is no longer active. So if you have those older consoles, I don't know what other way to put it, these consoles that have been retired, you can no longer digitally buy games for them. Which means if you can find some physical copies of games, you're welcome to do that. But at this current venture, these consoles, who were designed to be digital and physical game releases, are no longer going to be working for digital releases. I mean, even, there's no new digital releases, but there were digital games available, and some of them are only available digitally, but no longer. The Wii U and 3DS store has closed. Now, finally, this is where I typically do reviews, and that's my plan. So I will start with the worst of the two. And when I say worst, that doesn't mean it's bad. Shazam Fury of the Gods. It is picks up directly where Shazam 1 left off. The foster family that turns into the Shazam superheroes. They're working together, and not always, but without getting into much story, I'll just say this movie is a lot of fun, and it introduces us to, from what I understand, characters that weren't in the comic books for Shazam, but they make sense in the Shazam universe, as it were. So it's not like it's out of place. Zachary Levi kills it as Billy Batson, as Shazam, whatever you want to say. Also a highlight is, what's his name? Not Adrian Brody. Oh man, I forgot his name. Anyway, the other main character, who actually might be the main character of this movie. It's a lot more about him than it is about Billy Batson this time, which is fine. And I really enjoyed the movie, and it's a shame that it made so little money, because I would definitely watch a third version of it, Shazam 3. But there is this controversy going around about The Rock. The Rock apparently blocked Shazam from being included in Black Adam, or vice versa as well, because it was something he wanted to do further down the road. And it just seems like that's the way I used to think that Vin Diesel was the difficult one here between the two of them, because they had beef, but I'm starting to not like The Rock. He rubs me the wrong way. He thinks he's the most important person in every room he's ever in. And I'm starting to think Stone Cold was the better the better of the two when I was growing up. But either way, I regret that. Well, I don't have regret because it's not something that's personally my responsibility. I went and saw the movie because I would love to see Shazam 3 or keep Shazam in the DC universe. But it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards because this movie tanked big time. Now, a movie that didn't tank, John Wick Chapter 4. It is a long movie. 2 hours and 45 minutes, I believe, is the runtime. Now, that's including credits at the end. And there is an after credit scene, which I unfortunately just assumed there wouldn't be one because there hasn't been one before. But I did see it at the very first available showing, so there wasn't really any research I could do on the subject at the time. So I just left, and then I looked it up later. And I wish I would have seen it. But I will say, a lot of places gave this a 10 out of 10. And I went in with high expectations. And on those high expectations, I was given a great movie. But I felt going into it, knowing a lot of people said it was a 10 out of 10, I couldn't give it a 10 out of 10. So I said probably a 9.5 out of 10. Then a friend of mine saw it and he said I was crazy that I only gave it a 9.5. He said it's a 20 out of 10. And the more I think about it, the more I realize there's nothing wrong with this movie in the slightest. There are times that it feels a little long, but it's all important to the story and the build-up and the action sequences require every single piece that happens. And a man of few words, John Wick, Keanu Reeves, is supplemented by characters who are not a few words. Lawrence Fishburne's character is great in this movie. Lance Reddick is in it, his final appearance. May he rest in peace. And gosh, I'm going to miss him a lot because he's great in everything. He made that Resident Evil television show on Netflix bearable. He was Wesker and he killed it. It was great. I love him in everything. He was in Fringe. He was in Destiny. He was in Rick and Morty. Lance Reddick was a gem to the nerd community. And I loved everything he was ever in. And it's a shame that he went so soon. But also, he was great in this film. He was great in the other John Wick films. Everybody in it was shone brightly. Is that the right? Shone? I don't know. Everybody shined brightly. And the end of it, at the end of the movie, I went out very satisfied. So you know what? I'm gonna say it is a 10 out of 10. The best action movie I've ever seen, hands down. The best John Wick film, of course, if it's the best action film, because they're all classified as such. Hands down. And would I see it again? Not in theaters, probably. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes long, but I will watch it at home. And it's a 2 hours and 45 minutes in a theater when I can't pause is just a little rough for me. Even like, all the Marvel films are trying to be super long these days, and it's just not. I have a very short attention span as it is, so it's really rough for me. But yeah, you should see Shazam Fury of the Gods. You should see John Wick Chapter 4. This week, what movie am I seeing? I'm seeing the Dungeons and Dragons movie. I hope to have a review for you next week. And then the week after that, we are on vacation. Oh, that means I won't have a review for you next week. No, I will have a review for you next week. Wait, what day? Maybe... I think you know what? I don't think I'll have a review for Mario for you. I think that's the week that we are on vacation and that I go see that. But I will have a review for Mario for you when I come back. Excuse me. My current plan is to try to see a movie a week now that my back and leg are feeling better. But the other day I woke up with a hurt knee. So who knows? Maybe I won't go see one movie a day. I'm getting old. One movie a week. But that's my plan. And I hope to bring you more reviews in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this video portion of the Nerd News Podcast. I gave it all this space over here because I intend to, now that doesn't mean that I'll be able to, put stuff I'm talking about there. But I'm not video editing savvy, so we'll see. If it's not too terribly difficult to do in iMovie, then it'll be there. And you'll be like, oh, he already had it there. Look at that. He's killing it. Or if you're like, why is there so much blank space? And you get to this point and you're like, well, he didn't do anything with it. You know what happened. So thank you for joining me on the Nerd News Podcast. And again, out this week, I don't know if you can see my shirt. Let me see. The Dungeons & Dragons movie. I'm wearing a Dungeons & Dragons shirt if you're listening on audio. All right. That is the Nerd News Podcast. I will see you, and you'll see me, I think, next week, or unless I can't figure this out. But either way, next week, there will be a Nerd News Podcast.
That's it for this week's Nerd News Podcast. Follow TechD Rob on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at TechD_Rob. Subscribe now. More nerd news next week.